What's up, guys? Welcome back to JodabeniTV. Today's another amazing day to get out there. We're going to be better today than we were yesterday. And for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what is the difference between the MLS and the actual Premier League. So stick around and we're going to get straight into it. As you guys may know, the Premier League is one of the greatest soccer leagues in the world concurrently. And as of right now, you may be wondering, what is the difference between the MLS and the Premier League? So first of all, we already know that the Premier League has some of the greatest players in the world. And if you have a league that has most of the best players in the world compared to one that only has some, of course you can already tell the Premier League is going to be at a higher level just because everybody who's playing there, most of them are at a higher level also. But it doesn't mean you should look down at the MLS, because the MLS also has the greatest players over from the other side of the world, and they have other European imports that are helping their teams be successful today. So in terms of leagues, we're going to be taking a quick look at the major differences, and I'm pretty sure all you guys want to know the difference in money, how much players are getting made, and today I'm going to be showing you guys all those nice details. So if you play in Europe right now and maybe you're thinking about coming to the MLS, I hope this video will help you, get a better understanding. And maybe right now you're in the Premier League and you've been invited to the MLS and you just want to know another insight. Here's a chance for you to get more information. And if you like the video, be sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, because I'm always bringing you daily content. And by all means, let's start off with the first thing. MLS versus the Premier League. Let's take a look at their formats. So for the Premier League, there's a total of 20 teams. And in season, each team plays each other at least 2 times. And the season runs from August to May. So at the end of the season, whichever team that gets the most points actually wins the title. But that's not all. Second place, third place, and fourth place also get invited into the UEFA Champions League. And then you have fifth place who actually gets invited to the Europa League. Everybody else is stuck between. Unlike the MLS, in the Premier League, the bottom 3 teams at the end of the season actually get regulated down to second tier. So yeah, it's another incentive for each team to be sure, they're not at the bottom either, so they can keep pushing, or else they're gonna get regulated. In contrast, in the MLS, since the United States is actually so massive, they can't just have one conference to hold all the teams in different matches. So they split the MLS into two conferences. You have the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. And each conference has a total of 13 teams, equivalating into a total of 26 teams in total. While there is 3 that are based in Canada. And currently the MLS is trying to pull in more Mexican teams to join into the actual MLS, which will be an amazing thing because it's gonna bring a brand new audience that's based off in Mexico coming in and watching the MLS, and it's just gonna help boost the whole economical standpoint of the MLS. And on the other end of the conferences, you have the expansion teams, and the expansion teams are just as they're titled. Their goal is to expand the MLS, and there's supposed to be a new teams that are going to be coming in 2021 and 2022, and hopefully those teams are going to be Mexican teams. And for the MLS, the typical season runs approximately from March all the way to October. In the MLS, in each conference, each team plays each other at least twice, and then each team per conference will play at least 10 different teams on the other side of the conference, and at the end of the regular season they should have a total of 34 matches per team. The 2 teams that come out on top on each conference automatically get a spot in the semifinals in the playoffs and another pass in the CONCACAF Champions League. After each club has played all 34 matches, at the end of everything, they take the total points of both the Eastern and the Western Conference and see which conference got the most points, and whoever got the most points gets the Supporters Shield. But at the end of the day, there's no regulation, so everybody's just back where they started for the next season. Now, let's talk about money. The main reason a lot of you guys clicked this video today, because you're probably wondering, what is the biggest difference? Will my pockets hurt if I stay in the MLS, or will my pockets hurt if I go to the Premier League? Well, let's find out. As of right now, the Premier League is the soccer league that makes the most money in the whole world today. And the 2017-2018 season, out of the 20 teams that were playing, in total revenue, they made over $6 billion. And if you compare that to what the MLS made, the MLS topped off at $1.6 billion. Both the Premier League and the MLS clubs, they all make profit off of sponsorships, prize monies, player sales, and broadcasting you know, when people watch it on TV. Both leagues make predominantly a lot of their money from that source. But the difference is how that money is spread out into the league, how clubs get the money, who gets the money, and how players are played in general. So for the Premier League, everything that's put on TV, the broadcasting revenue, it's all broken down evenly to all the teams. And then from the teams, they decide how they want to spread it out in their clubs. But the rest of the money from that $6 billion you see in total revenue is split up, you know, depending on where a team finishes, how much that club was shown on TV. But a lot of Premier League teams actually make a lot of their money from selling their own, you know, t-shirt sponsorships. They sell name rights to their stadiums, and they just make a lot of money on the side, you know, without even actually, you know, players playing on the field. And that way, like, the clubs themselves can keep going and make as much money as they want, as long as they keep pushing all these external sources of income. And depending on the teams, the match day ticket sales, it all depends on your team, how many people want to come watch it, how big your stadium is. The bigger your stadium, the more people you can hold, and the better your team, the more you can charge per ticket. So all those factors come into play whenever the team is trying to make revenue. The MLS is a bit different than the Premier League by how, while the Premier League is more individual, there can be club owners. In the United States, actually, the MLS, there's no single pair of owners. They're more like investors that all pitch in to help one team grow. And a lot of the contracts and the player contracts are all held centrally in the team. And each part owner of each team are pretty much shareholders for the MLS, which kind of means they're all more like partners than competitors when it comes to competition, because they're all in this to make more money. The MLS pretty much owns every team in the actual MLS. So if you're part of the Sounders or Houston Dynamo, whatever income they make is actually owned by the MLS, and then the MLS will distribute it accordingly. And if there's any profit made at the end of the season, the MLS actually takes that profit and divides it upon all the investor operators, so everybody that put money into the league itself. So whatever income the teams make from their ticket sales, their stadium, and their local broadcasting rights, they get to keep. But even though they get to keep a lot of that money, they still have to give 30% back to the actual MLS. In the 2019 and 2020 season, the Premier League ended up paying over $1 billion in player salaries. And so that, I mean, pretty much if you take $1 billion out of $6 billion, there's $5 billion left still. I don't know where that money went to, but that just shows there's putting a lot of emphasis in actually paying players a lot of money to keep the league going. And in the end, it does help out because there's more players trying to get better just so they can, you know, get a better lifestyle and get better pay in the long run. But the MLS is very different. There's actually a salary cap on the MLS teams. So nobody can, you know, the teams can't be paying over the $4.9 million cap. But ever since David Beckham came, they changed that rule and made it to where each team can actually have 3 players who can be above the salary cap. This way, now teams can get players from Europe who are expensive and put them on their squad to help them get that title at the end of the season. So as you can tell, the format in the Premier League is much more free per team, meaning they can make more income, they can spend more money on players, and they can get better players in general without having any salary cap, and they have privately owned teams. So whatever money that person who owns a team wants to invest in the team, they can put as much money as they want, and he can pay as much, you know, much more amounts per player than the MLS. But at the same time, if you're playing in the MLS, you are living in America, and a lot of the times economically, in an economical standpoint, living in America comes with a lot of benefits that a lot of players do think about also before going to Europe or making the change from Europe to the United States. The soccer in Europe is very high, and we're hoping the MLS can catch it very soon and become more diverse. And with the chances of more Mexican teams coming into the MLS, will actually help raise the level and bring more of the Latino audience into the MLS and just growing even more. And eventually, because as of right now, the president of the MLS does not want any regulation. So if there's a time where he's no longer there and there's another president who changes that, then we might see other changes, and maybe the transition with academy kids going to the actual MLS may be much more smoother, and there's going to be a lot of more young kids being able to transition straight to the MLS without having going through the whole university route. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button down below. And by all means, subscribe. And if you have any questions, put it down in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. JodabeniTV is